Hey guys, so today I want to talk about polycystic ovarian syndrome or PCOS and blood sugars. These two are very much related, and one of the primary reasons why women get on birth control is because of PCOS and the unpleasant symptoms that come along with it, not necessarily for contraceptive purposes. And this is a big issue because the root cause of PCOS is metabolic and inflammatory. And taking the pill, which is what doctors typically prescribe when women are diagnosed with PCOS, it is only suppressing the symptoms. It's not actually targeting the root cause of the hormonal imbalances that are causing PCOS symptoms like high testosterone, which can cause acne, and other things that are causing irregular periods, extremely heavy and uncomfortable periods, and other unpleasant things like hair growth in places that it's not supposed to be, or hair loss. So this is a big issue for a lot of women, and you're on the pill. I was on the pill for 10 years after being diagnosed with PCOS. I'm just scared to death that I had cysts on my ovaries, and what did that mean? And the doctor said that it was common, and they said that they could also rupture, which is terrifying for a woman to hear, that a cyst on your ovary could rupture, and then what? Then we're left infertile. So most women, especially if you're a teenager when you're diagnosed, opt for the birth control pill because we don't really know any other method. We don't know any better, and we want to trust the experts. But what the experts don't tell us is that by taking the pill, we're delaying the diagnosis of the underlying cause. And for most women, the underlying cause is blood sugar imbalances. So if you have, irritability and fatigue quite often, maybe it's after, skipping lunch because you had a work meeting, or just grabbing something quick like granola bar or muffin, then that can really throw your blood sugars out of whack. And there's a lot of other things that we do today that wreak havoc on our blood sugars. We eat too frequently, we eat too much, and we're never really giving our body a break. And this is really hard on our pancreas because our pancreas is what produces insulin. And insulin is a hormone that helps to transport the blood sugars to our cells. So what happens a lot of times, I also mentioned that inflammation is a primary cause of PCOS, is that our bodies become inflamed for any number of reasons. The pill does promote inflammation, and other lifestyle habits promote inflammation, chronic stress, poor sleep, food choices, sedentary lifestyle, all of these things, chemicals and additives in our foods and products, all promote inflammation in the body, and that causes our cells to be more rigid. You could put it that way. They're more rigid, and when that happens, the insulin is trying to shuttle our blood sugars to our cells, but our cells aren't responding to that signal. And they get worse and worse at responding to the insulin and taking in that blood sugar, the more inflammation that's present in the body. And then the blood sugars have nowhere to go, and they end up staying in our bloodstream. And the more blood sugars we have in our bloodstream, the more insulin our pancreas is going to produce. And eventually, we're just pumping out so much insulin, and our cells are getting more and more numb to this. This causes insulin resistance, and that's also known as type 2 diabetes. And this is a huge problem because, like I mentioned, insulin is a hormone. And, all of our hormones are interconnected. So if that hormone isn't going into the cells, then, insulin is going to impact the ovaries. And what happens then is that the ovaries respond by producing more testosterone. And that's why we see a lot of the symptoms that that we experience, those unpleasant ones like the acne, and some women experience hair growth like, on their chin and chest and other places. And obviously this is a big problem, and women do need a certain amount of testosterone, but in response to these elevated insulin levels, our ovaries are putting out way too much of that. Now, normally we have a hormone known as sex hormone binding globulin, and its job is to really go and trap those excess hormones. If our ovaries are producing too much testosterone, then our sex hormone binding globulin can go in and render some of that testosterone inactive, so it's not causing these unpleasant symptoms. But unfortunately, insulin resistance also impacts our liver. And our liver is what is producing the sex hormone binding globulin. So unfortunately, we're not producing adequate amounts of that. And so that testosterone is just out there doing its thing and just wreaking havoc on our hormones. And these types of hormonal imbalances that can occur when we have blood sugar dysregulation that ultimately leads to insulin resistance can cause infertility because we're not producing enough of the hormones that we need, we're producing too much of the hormones that we don't need, and we're not really creating an internal balance, an ecosystem that's supportive of producing life and growing a fetus. So that is very scary, and that was something I delved into when I decided to get off birth control. I wanted to know, are all of these symptoms going to resurface? Like, what should I expect? Should I expect to be bleeding through again? Like irregular periods, lots of cramping, lots of acne. I had acne on my back as a teenager. I remember getting it on my chest, shoulders. Like, there was nowhere that was off limits. So, as an adult, I was obviously very scared of that, and I've had friends who have gotten off birth control and ultimately got back on birth control because those symptoms were so awful and disruptive to their life. So I really took the time to look at the research, find out what I needed to do to support my body, to regulate my blood sugars, and make sure that I'm producing the proper amount of insulin, making sure that my cells are sensitive to that insulin, which means reducing inflammation in the body, supporting the liver so that it can do its job. And all of those other systems are just absolutely vital to helping to get rid of the PCOS because it is curable. And that's something that our doctors don't often tell us. And, to help support them a little bit, it's hard to, in a 10-minute visit with a patient, produce a lot of lasting lifestyle changes. So, the doctor can say, hey, you really need to cut back on sugars and soda and refined carbs. But that's really all they can do is give a patient this information. But my job is really helping people to apply this information, find out where are these sugars hidden in a lot of our foods and refined carbohydrates. What can we replace these foods with so that we're still satiated, we still have meals with plenty of nutrients and fuel, but without all of the negative side effects and blood sugar dysregulation that those things can cause. So I really help people implement the changes in their life. Doctors can tell you what to do, but they can't show you how to do it and provide you accountability along the way and be a constant resource for you along the way, which is what people really need when it comes to creating lasting lifestyle changes. So that's what I do. That's why a lot of times doctors are just prescribing a pill. It does help alleviate those symptoms, but again, we want to get to the root cause of those symptoms, and that's really inflammation and blood sugar imbalances. So what I had to do was really be careful about my meal timing. So again, if you're eating all day long, then your blood sugars are going to constantly be elevated. You're never giving your body a chance to really shuttle those to the cells and insulin and pancreas to have a break. And when they don't have a break, they're constantly overworked and fatigued. And that's a lot of what's going on inside our body today, is it's just a lot of our systems are overworked and fatigued by all of these inputs. So meal timing and the quality of our meals is obviously very important. There are certain ingredients that can help lower the blood sugar response, and being really strategic about your activity. So one way to help lower our blood sugars is to move. Because when we move, then our body needs to send those blood sugars to our muscles. So that can be used for energy. And that's really important. If we eat a big meal, like a lot of people are eating dinner at like 9 p.m. at night, and then maybe having dessert, and then going to bed, and you're laying there. I mean, your metabolism is doing some things like digestion and detoxing, but it's not doing as much as if you were to go for a walk after that meal, or stop eating sooner, where you're still scooting around the house, doing little things here and there, still moving your body and engaging your muscles, where those blood sugars can be shuttled to those muscles for energy and for use, versus just floating around in the bloodstream all night. So being really strategic about your movement is a vital part to helping control your blood sugars. And again, if you are often irritable, like you get hangry, that's a sign of blood sugar imbalances. If you just have an afternoon crash, that's a sign of blood sugar swings. So pay attention to those things. Some other signs of insulin resistance, so signs that you're more progressed in your blood sugar dysregulation, is frequent urination and excessive thirst. Things like that can be signs of blood sugar imbalances. And those are things we want to get ahead of for those women who are thinking of getting off the pill, so that we don't experience a post-pill PCOS, which does happen. And so those symptoms don't arise again. And for anyone else who's not on the pill or on birth control, blood sugar control is just very important, because insulin resistance and things like that can really compromise our kidneys. It can really compromise our eyes. It can really compromise our brain health and ovaries for women. So those are things that we need to be working properly. So again, blood sugar control, incredibly important. If you have a family history of type 2 diabetes, it's even more important. But honestly, it's becoming more and more prevalent in our society today because of all the processed foods, convenient foods that are out there that people are eating, and all those sneaky ingredients that they're putting in our foods to save money and make them taste better and be more addictive. So that was my little spiel on PCOS and blood sugar control. Again, if you are a woman who, like me, was put on birth control because of PCOS, then we haven't really necessarily gotten to the root cause of that problem, and getting off the pill can mean that a lot of those symptoms that got you on the pill in the first place could arise. And so we got to get ahead of that. And one way to do that is to reach out and schedule a free 45-minute healthy hormone breakthrough session with me. And it's just a phone call, and we can talk about what's going on for you, what symptoms are you experiencing now, what led you to get on birth control in the first place, and just find those hidden, those blind spots in your lifestyle and routine that are wreaking havoc on your blood sugars and causing a lot of inflammation in your body. And targeting these things is really the key to transitioning off birth control safely and effectively, and without all of those unpleasant and embarrassing symptoms. So thank you all so much for listening today, and again, follow that link to schedule a free session with me.